Welcome to Ask the Hard Questions. One Voice, Season 1, Episode 12. This is the place where slogans don't get a free pass, where tradition doesn't outrank the king, where you don't get to hide behind different people back then and not for us, while the words of Jesus sit open on the table. Tonight is about one voice, not a split God, not a changing God, not a father who curses his own commandments and then congratulates Rome for ignoring them. Not a Messiah who abolished what he just defended. One voice, Father, Son, and Moses standing in the same record, saying the same thing. Obedience is life, and lawlessness is death. Here's the rule we're applying in Episode 12. If your theology requires God to contradict himself, it's not theology, it's a cover story. If your gospel needs Jesus to be talking to someone else every time he commands obedience, you're not following Jesus, you're dodging him. We're going to put the common excuses on trial. He was talking to Jews. That was for Israel. That was for then. Israel couldn't do it, so we can't. But, no, enough. If God doesn't change, truth doesn't change. If the Messiah is the same yesterday, today, and forever, then his standard doesn't evaporate when it becomes inconvenient. So in this episode, we're going back to the record. We're going to the words that were written in languages real people could read, before power gates, before empire edits, before the stage became an authority. We're going to test every later voice against the king, against Moses, against the witnesses, because the sign of Jonah was the public stamp, and after that, no one gets to stroll in with a new gospel that cancels what the Messiah already established. If you're here because you're tired of being lied to with a smile, good, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Ask the hard questions. Hashtag Eric Seeks Truth. The law of God is not a ministry of death. It is power. It is comfort. It is the steady heartbeat of a father who does not change. It is the mercy of a judge who tells you the truth before the sentence falls. You don't call a lighthouse legalism when the rocks are real. You call it love. And Jesus did not come to mute that voice. He came to reveal it, fully, publicly, in daylight, so nobody could pretend they didn't know. Listen to the king destroy the whole abolished fantasy with one courtroom line. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fill to fullness. Matthew 5:17. That's not a suggestion. That's breaks locking truth. Before the lawless sermons could even get traction, he put the word abolish on trial and condemned the accusation. Then he ties himself to Moses so tightly that anyone trying to separate them is announcing their own rebellion. Do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one accusing you, Moses. For if you were believing Moses, you would be believing me, for he wrote about me. But if you do not believe his writings, how will you believe my words? John 5:45-47. Read that slowly. Jesus doesn't say Moses was a phase. He says Moses stands in the courtroom as a living witness. Moses isn't the enemy of Messiah. Moses is the prosecuting exhibit against fake faith. If you can't hear Moses, you can't hear Jesus. Period. So why do they keep preaching a God who changed? A God who used to care about obedience, but now only cares about belief? A God who wrote commandments with his own finger and then turned around and called his own words a curse. That God is not the Father. That God is a sales pitch. Because once you convince people God contradicted himself, you can sell them anything. You can sell them Sunday as if it replaced Sabbath. You can sell them lawlessness as if it were freedom. You can sell them empire as if it were Christian nation. You can sell them comfort as if it were the kingdom. And this is why the sign of Jonah matters. It's not trivia. It's not one isolated proof text. It's the line in the sand that exposes every later voice trying to override the king. An evil and adulterous generation seeks a sign, and no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. Matthew 12:39. Jonah is the public stamp, the final courtroom sign. Death, burial, resurrection, God's receipt in history. After that, anybody who walks in waving a new framework that cancels the king's own words is not deep. They are a rival voice. And Jesus already told you how to test rival voices. Moses and the prophets stand there accusing. Now look at the language war for what it is. God put his words in Hebrew because covenant is not a vibe, it's an inheritance with terms. He put the good news into common Koine Greek because the message was not meant for a priestly monopoly. It was meant to be read in the marketplace, argued in the street, memorized at the table, and obeyed in real life. And then the Church of Empire did what empire always does: centralize power, restrict access, punish dissent. Latin becomes a control gate. Control gates always come with threats. When people can't test the claims, the stage becomes the authority. This isn't paranoia. This is documented history. The Latin became a weapon of control, and restrictions on vernacular scripture for everyday people show up in medieval church policy. And when you fast forward into the Reformation, did they finish the job and return people to obedience? No. They kept the same lawless engine and just repainted the hood. They had a chance, centuries of chance. And what did they do with the brother of the Lord, the man whose entire message is faith without works is dead? They called him disposable. James was treated like a nuisance because he refuses to bless a pretend faith that produces no obedience. And then comes the faith alone machine, where the word alone gets smuggled into slogans so the crowd can chant their way out of obedience. The point is simple. When a system needs lawlessness, it always edits the emphasis. Do you see the pattern? Every time the record threatens lawlessness, the system attacks the witnesses, edits the emphasis, and trains people to call obedience bondage. Now ask the hard question they never want asked. If God does not change, why does their God constantly need revisions? If Jesus tied himself to Moses, why does their gospel require separating them? If the words were put into languages the people could understand, why does their system always drift back toward gatekeeping, whether it's Latin yesterday or pastor says today? And why is there a king's name printed on the front page of so many Bibles, as if Jesus needed a sponsor? No, no, no. We don't need you to preach around what it says. Those days are done. We will read it. We will test it. We will measure every claim by the one voice that never contradicts itself. Father and Son in perfect unity. With Moses standing in the record as a witness the king refused to dismiss. Empire is not the kingdom. Empire is Satan wearing policy and perfume. And the moment a religious system teaches people to distrust God's commandments, mock his Sabbath, and treat obedience as optional, what you're looking at is not church. It's a beast with choir lights. Come out of the spell. Stop calling contradictions mystery. Stop calling lawlessness grace. Stop calling comfort faith. The law of God is not your enemy. It's your rescue rope. The king didn't abolish it. He filled it to fullness and demanded you stop pretending you didn't hear him. Ask the hard questions, please. Thank you for joining me today on Ask the Hard Questions. And if you're being hit by this big storm right now, I'm praying protection over you. Real safety, real shelter, real warmth. Because it is mind-bending that millions are cold in the richest Christian nation on earth. Lights out, heat gone, people stranded. And the same system that loves to preach blessings can't even produce basic justice. You know the rest of the story. When a nation throws away the law of God, it doesn't become free, it becomes lawless. And lawlessness always eats the poor first. This is why episode 12 matters, because once you finally hear one voice, everything else sounds like noise. The Father and the Son in unison. No contradictions, no loopholes, no different people. Back then, not for us. Just truth with teeth, covenant with terms, mercy with a spine. One voice, one fear, one judge, one standard, one resurrection. And the comfort in that is unspeakable, because it means God is not double-minded. He is not a liar. He does not change. He does not bless what he cursed. He does not cancel what he spoke. When you stop following the stage and start following the king, you feel it. Clarity replaces confusion. Obedience replaces excuses. Peace replaces the constant need to defend contradictions. If this episode hit you hard, it's because you're waking up. Keep going. Read it for yourself. Test every claim. Cut through the smoke. Follow me, Eric Osborne, at Eric Seeks Truth on Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, YouTube, and the Ask the Hard Questions podcast. I love you all. Ask the Hard Questions, #Eric Seeks Truth.